Good morning. The May 3rd Board of Education meeting is now in session. Please rise for the invocation. O God, we pray to administer that which is just in all educational policies, being ever mindful of your guidance, stir us to action with love, wisdom, and understanding. I pledge.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I want to welcome Dr. McMahon to the podium today, or the dais. Dr. Arlato is out sick today. And I also want to welcome Lucia Cole, our new student board members out there in the audience somewhere. There she is. Welcome and congratulations. The next item is the approval of the minutes. Do I have a motion to approve the minutes?
So moved. Second.
All those in favor? All right, the minutes have been approved. Item 2.04 is to establish agenda order, and the agenda will stand as published. Item 2.05 is recognitions, and we do not have any today. Item 2.06 is Educator of the Month. Mrs. Hummer.
In the creative world of education today, students can construct and demonstrate their understanding in many ways. Traditionally, they are asked to communicate their learning through a report or on a test. However, when they are involved in arts integration, their learning is evident in the products they create, such as the dance, painting, or dramatization. So today, we recognize an educator in our school system who uses this approach to teaching and learning, in which the arts are used as the methodology for teaching and learning. Pat Kloss, Arts Integration Teacher Specialist, supports arts integrated learning for student success throughout the district, specifically in 6 elementary schools and 2 middle schools. Arts integration strategies have been incorporated into the county curriculum, scores of teachers have been trained, and hundreds of exemplar lessons written. Arts integration has become an essential strategy in our school system in connecting 21st century learners to rigorous, relevant, engaging coursework. As part of the 5-year plan of implementation, curricula has been single-handedly enhanced through strategies and techniques by Pat. Her expertise in visual thinking strategies, professional development, and coaching have been invaluable. Pat passionately believes that integrating the arts is the best approach to teaching, as it enriches the classroom environment with the arts, engages students, and motivates learning. Pat's mission is to help all teachers realize that they can teach through the arts. Her professional development strategies help teachers rethink the roles they play and their relationship with students. Those who work with Pat are constantly inspired by her creativity, enthusiasm, and dedication to the arts. Pat coordinates a variety of opportunities for teachers to learn about and immerse themselves in arts integration. These opportunities impact teachers' approach to instruction, engaging their students in a variety of ways. Pat writes a weekly arts integration blog for educationcloset.com and conducts professional development in her field for school districts not only locally but nationally. She has served as mentor teacher, instructional coach, and school improvement specialist for AACPS. She's the county liaison and instructor with Towson University for the Arts Cohort, which has graduated over 30 staff with a post-baccalaureate certificate in arts integration. Pat Kloss, learning through the arts is a dynamic way to engage students, as it lets them use their imagination and creativity as their methodology of learning each and every day. Arts integration is for any subject, anytime. So for these reasons and more, the board is proud to honor and recognize you Educator of the Month for May 2017. Congratulations. Please join me up front.
Eleni says I have to come to the meeting. Just as simple as that.
Yes. Who all's here? I saw a nice crowd coming.
I have my husband and my son and his wife and my new granddaughter and my daughter Valerie.
Your daughter said, "Don't forget me." Well, wonderful. Thank you for all you do. Arts integration is such an important, valuable thing, and I love that you were spreading it even more throughout the state and county. And you have a
bell down to get all your attention when you're teaching these teachers, to bring them on, and a certificate as Educator of the Month. Thank you for all you do.
Thank you very much.
Next, we have Employee of the Month, Mrs. Sasso.
Today, we recognize an employee in our school system who is the picture of professionalism as a media assistant and an amazing multitasker. Each morning in the Jacobsonville Elementary School Media Center, Debbie Stanley juggles checking books out, helping students and teachers find materials, running the morning news, and giving quizzes to students on the books they read. She's also responsible for creating records for new books that come into the library, a task at which she so meticulously that Jacobsonville has never had material flagged as having an incomplete record. Debbie has a great rapport with her students. Her interaction with them are warm and engaging, making the library a comfortable hub where the kids enjoy spending time. Every student, teacher, and staff member in the building is always greeted with a smile and positive, kind word from Mrs. Stanley. She volunteered to participate in the school's Book Buddy program, which matches staff members with young students in need of extra practice with sounds, letters, and reading. She not only contributed to her buddy's academic growth, but the relationship she created has a lasting impact on his social and emotional growth as well. No matter what the activity, Mrs. Stanley is always the first person to sign up to help when the call to volunteer goes out. Although her work hours may have ended hours before, she can always be seen at local restaurants, spirit nights, family nights, book fair events, fall festivals, Girls on the Run, PBIS assemblies, and so much more. Debbie is willing to do anything to create a spirit of family within the school, even running laps around the school to get girls ready for an upcoming 5K or competing in minute-to-win-it games with student partners. In addition, her service extends to the surrounding community as she serves as team captain for the school's Relay for Life team, spending countless hours planning fundraiser events and serving on the event leadership team. Mrs. Stanley is a professional, always completing her task to the highest degree. She enjoys participating in professional development opportunities to bolster her own skills. She takes great pride in the library that she has helped to create, nurturing the welcoming climate for students and teachers and broadening the library collection. Debbie Stanley, your performance is now and always has been that of a model other media assistants can aspire to. Your positive attitude and influence at your school are extraordinary, and your entire school community salutes you and thanks you for all you do for Jacobsville Elementary School. So on behalf of the Board of Education, we are pleased to recognize you as Employee of the Month for May 2017. Congratulations. Please join me up front. Okay, Debbie, what trick did they use to bring you here?
I'm supposed to be here talking about Relay for Life today, actually.
Well, would you like to say something about Relay for Life?
We have an awesome team at our school. We set a goal this year, it was our 10th year, to raise over $10,000, and we've done over $11,000 this year.
We present you with this certificate, and with this bell, you can bring everybody to Relay.
Thank you so much.
And thank you very much.
Thank you.
Wait, who came with you?
Okay. My husband is here, my son is here, my stepmom and my stepsister, and Jen Richards from our school, the media specialist, and our assistant principal, Jen Schweikert, and Laura Watton, one of our special education teachers.
So you do have a big crowd here
Yes,
for you.
thank you.
Thank you for coming.
Item 2.08 is Volunteer of the Month. That's Mrs. Birch.
Thank you. Our Volunteer of the Month awardee is someone who, at her first volunteers meeting, fully embraced an invitation to become Marley Middle School's first avid tutor. Since then, she has, according to one AVID teacher, exceeded all our expectations. Mrs. Donna Howard, you are that exceptional AVID tutor whom the Board of Education is proud to honor today as our May 2017 Volunteer of the Month. AVID Site Coordinator, Miss Bethany Swajek, writes, every Tuesday and Thursday, Mrs. Howard can be found working intensely with 6th, 7th, and 8th grade AVID students and assisting their teachers. She is now an essential part of the Marley Middle AVID program routine and success. Without fail, Mrs. Howard arrives for her volunteer duties early to ensure the AVID classrooms are totally prepared for their students and teachers. Thanks to her, Stacy Stamp's quick transition from a phys ed teacher in the gym to the AVID instructor in the health classroom is now worry-free. She goes all out, Miss Stamp exclaims. Tutoring groups are listed on whiteboards so the students immediately know where to go, and all supply caddies are well stocked. This is a huge help to me. Mrs. Howard further assists teachers and students by checking homework and classwork quality while effectively guiding students to show their work. With her friendly, helpful nature, Mrs. Howard has developed warm working relationships with the students and staff alike. She easily shares and inspires students with stories of her own youthful learning experiences in Military Academy and draws on her wide-ranging knowledge to guide students to solutions. Joe Holtzman, AVID elective and FACS teacher, admires Mrs. Howard's ability to bring her experiences to the AVID tutoring setting. I've always been impressed by her skill as an AVID tutor and as an instructional partner with me. I mostly enjoy her warm, cheerful, and engaging attitude as she helps each student accomplish their tutoring objective. Bethany Swajek agrees. Through adept use of the rigorous inquiry-based AVID tutorial process, Mrs. Howard leads our students to deeper understanding of their questions. Her encouraging demeanor significantly contributes to our positive AVID classroom climate. Principal Kimberly Winterbottom wholeheartedly endorses the Volunteer of the Month Award for Mrs. Howard. She writes, by building positive relationships with our students, Mrs. Howard impacts our students in positive ways that will stay with them long after they leave Marley. Thank you, Mrs. Howard. Would you please come forward? With great appreciation, I present this Volunteer of the Month certificate and bell to you.
Well, it sounds like you're doing wonderful things for our students at Marley. Thank you so much. Oh, well, you deserve more too, but what we have for you is a volunteer, which is delightful, and you can, tell them to come back to attention if they're drifting off. And here's a wonderful certificate. Now, what did they tell you when they asked you to come to this meeting this morning?
Oh, they told me that something about AVID was going to be discussed here, and it would be great to have my support.
This is true. Something about AVID is being discussed, and it's great to have you here and to have your support. Now, who did trick you into coming here today?
The AVID teacher, the coordinator of my school, Mrs. Swajek, right there.
Oh, good, I said it right.
But she didn't have to trick me. Like, I just do what she asked me to do. So no problem.
Oh, what a wonderful volunteer you are. Well, thank you. We're so happy to have you supporting our kids. Thank you. We couldn't do it without volunteers like you.
Thank you so much.
And we'll take some pictures of all of you at the break shortly. The next item on the agenda is 2.09 School and Community Highlights. Before I go into that, I neglected to mention that our real student board member, our current student board member, is taking AP exams. So she'll be back next time, and we wish her the best of luck today. And I also did want to acknowledge that this is Teacher Appreciation Week. So if you have not taken time to appreciate a teacher this week, I would encourage you to get one of those old-fashioned pens and paper note cards out and write a handwritten note. Teachers love those sorts of mementos. They keep them in their files forever. So take some time and thank a teacher this week before the week ends. All right, do we have any highlights? Mrs. Hummer?
this time of year is just filled with wonderful end of the year celebrations and things. And I had the pleasure of attending several of those in the past week. First off, we are so fortunate, as Ms. Howard illustrates, that the wonderful volunteers and community partners that we have in the system. Saturday, I was able to take part in the Travis Manion Foundation selected Mills Parole Elementary for their annual service project, and they were there planting flowers, and they collected thousands of books to give out to the students of Mills Parole. So that was a great activity, and to see the community and all the midshipmen from the Naval Academy there. At Brockbridge Elementary, one of their former students, Matthew Light, for his Eagle Scout project, came out to the school and worked with students and planted flower beds. And so I was there for the ribbon cutting, and it was great to see our students and the community involved in that. So all these areas of giving back. The arts are alive and well in Anne Arundel, as our Educator of the Month showed, and dance night at Glen Burnie High School was fabulous with the array of things they had. Did you know that we have a class dance for athletes? Love it. And so some of the athletes were up dancing. They were really good. I don't know what their sport was, but they were very good at dance. And the Little Mermaid production at North County High School was excellent. So that the stagecraft that our students have and the sets that they design are amazing. It was quite impressive. Scholarships for scholarships that we gave to dozens of our students last week, and that was so impressive. That's the Retired Teachers Association is involved with that, and many of our other community partners, and it was great to see some of our outstanding students recognized. Yesterday, I attended the recognition ceremony for our Cat South students, and if you ever want to be impressed and feel confident about who is going out into our workforce, you need to go to one of our CAT centers and see what they're doing. These students were recognized and received certifications in a variety of careers across the board. They are headed straight into the workforce, many of them. One young lady has completed 3 certification programs and her associate's degree. She is graduating from high school this month and is already a junior at the University of Maryland. I mean, it's an impressive crew, and she is well on her way to entering the medical field. And she was just one example of the amazing students that we have there. Dr. Arlotto and myself and some other of the school staff, as well as staff from MSDE, was able last week to visit Severna Park Elementary and their fabulous principal, Lynn Burris. They have been recognized as one of the outstanding gifted and talented programs in the state. And so she highlighted for us all the great extracurriculars and advanced enrichment programs that they have at Severna Park Elementary. And I know all of our schools offer those things. Severna Park was just an excellent showcase to put them out there, but it really is impressive to see everything that's going on to challenge our students in so many different ways there. As she said, what makes a successful teacher? Is it magic or is it skill? And it's a combination of the two. And definitely at Severna Park, you could see the magic working in the classrooms. And then yesterday was really exciting. Ms. Burge and I were able to go for the kickoff of Crab Radio, which is the new school system radio station in conjunction with Maryland Hall, and we're looking for, it'll be student programming, and we're looking forward to when it becomes totally student run. So 104.7, if you're in the Annapolis area, it's not a super strong signal, but you'll be able to get that and you'll hear our students performing and doing, so that's really exciting. So that was very fun to see. We wanted to push all the buttons, but we didn't, because we wouldn't have been able to pay for it if we broke it. But the Crab Radio is very exciting, so looking forward to that partnership.
Mrs. Birch.
Thank you. I really did enjoy going to the kickoff for Crab Radio. And you can also listen to it online. Dr. McMahon, what's the online?
Online, if you want to listen to it, it's crabradio.airtime.pro.
Okay, so
once again, crabradio.airtime.pro, and it's on about 8 hours a day right now, from somewhere around 10 a.m. to about 5 p.m.
And
each day.
And is there information there about how you could upload your own programming if you go to that?
There is. If you actually go to that site, there is a QR code, and you can actually find out if you have an idea, community member, teacher, parent, and students. If you have an idea, you can actually put it up, and we'll look at it and see if it's radio ready. Thanks.
So just wanted to make sure everybody knew about that, because I think that's one of the most exciting parts, is that the community can really become a part of this radio station. I also had the opportunity to go to Scholarship for Scholars, and that is an amazing event to see what the students in our county have done when they're in high school and what they're going to be doing. It's phenomenal, just what these kids are able to accomplish. I didn't understand some of the things that they've accomplished because it's a little over my head, but that's fantastic. That's wonderful. That's the way it should be. Also, we haven't mentioned that we had the Teacher of the Year awards last week, and what an amazing group of teachers it was. I can't imagine being on the selection committee. That must have been very difficult, but congratulations to everyone who was nominated, but in particular to Josh Carroll from South River High School, who is our Teacher of the Year from Anne Arundel County, who will go on to represent Anne Arundel County at the state Teacher of the Year competition. We wish him the best. He was fantastic. So congratulations, Josh.
Ms. Sasso.
I also had the opportunity to go to the Educator of the Month and Josh Carroll, but at the same time, since we were talking about Crab Radio, the tower will be going up on May 23rd. So hopefully by June and by the summer, we should all be able to get a better signal for it. Okay.
And I just want to add that we had the PTA Founders Day event, which was fantastic in a new format, and we really enjoyed our evening and honoring PTA. So thank you guys. Mrs. Hummer?
One more thing about Crab Radio. This has been a multi-year project to get there, and one of the things only in our area that when you run into roadblocks sometimes or challenges you have to overcome as they're trying to work on the tower and get things, they had to work around osprey mating season, because if the osprey were mating, and if you went up there, they would kind of, if they were in the midst of amorous activities, they would attack. And so who knows? See, the things that go on behind the scenes in a school system to get things done.
All right, item 2.10 is the CAC report.
Hi, good morning. Melanie Teichert, Chair of the CAC. We continue to meet the second Monday of every month, 7 to 9 p.m., although we skipped April because it was during spring break, and we thought that might be our last long spring break. So we skipped April, but we will have our last meeting of the year this coming Monday, 7 to 9 p.m. here in the boardroom. As you know, we have 5 subcommittees working on various items this year. To remind you, those are equity, bus transportation, wellness and life skills, communication, and testing. Our subcommittees are finalizing the work for the year, and we plan to submit a consolidated written report to the board. Our goal is 31 May, because that will be a week in advance of when I hope to brief you at the 7 June board meeting, so you'll be expecting those in about a month's time. This year, in addition to the subcommittee work, we've pursued 2 other items that I've at least discussed with the board president that I'd like to bring to the board as well. First, the term lengths for CAC. So as you likely know, by regulation, the current term length is 2 years. But recently, we've started talking as a committee about the advantages of possibly extending that to a 3rd year. It would give us more continuity and allow our subcommittees to be a little more productive. The frequent turnover has made the beginning of the year a little slow sometimes. On the other hand, we are cognizant of the fact that we don't want to hurt recruitment of new members. A 3-year term might be long, especially for some of our stakeholder groups. So with that in mind, our compromised proposal that I've mentioned to the board president and that we're pursuing through the policy committee will be to maintain the 2-year term with a possibility of a 1-year extension. So those people that are in a 2-year term that are willing to serve a 3rd year, and if that is satisfactory to the board and they're fulfilling their duties, that will give an opportunity for longer terms and more continuity. So that is our current proposal, and we'll be working through that. And if we can get that done in time, the people that will be rotating off of a 2-year term, we will give the opportunity to extend this year. So hopefully I'll have an update that on June. And second, we have created a Facebook page for the CAC. We've worked with Bob Mosier to make sure that we're maintaining school policies and the board president, and I will send that link out to both before we go live, but we're hoping for that to be by the end of the year as well. And we just hope to create another opportunity for dissemination of information. I'm really excited about Crab Radio. I made note of that. Who knows, maybe we can get involved in that effort as well. So I look forward to the June meeting where we can give you our annual report. Thank you.
Thank you. And 2.11 is the PTA report.
Good morning, everyone. Dr. McMahon, President Korbelak, members of the board. I'm Allison Pickard, President of the County Council of PTAs. We did have a fabulous night, April 21st, and I thank many in the room and many of you on the dais for attending. The council, my executive board, and the Founders Day committee chaired by Steph Holler really did take a leap of faith with me as we went to change year-old format of Founders Day. So it was fun. There's some tweaking that still could happen for next year. We learned a lot. I learned a lot but with sponsorships and silent auction donations, the community was well represented. We did give out 3 awards, and these were new awards for the council. Kirsten Chapman from Germantown Elementary was awarded PTA Advocate of the Year. Ashley Olerking from Manorview Elementary was awarded PTA President of the Year. And finally, Debbie Naparali from Chesapeake High School was named PTA Volunteer of the Year. That was really the crux of the whole evening, and it was exciting to see them, their work be recognized. And it was really exciting to see the energy in the room. I know my PTA from Oakwood Elementary got to meet PTA members from Chesapeake Bay Middle School, so that, there was a lot of good energy like that, and I hope we can keep that going as the years go on. So thank everybody for attending. We are going to turn our attention now to training. We'll have PTAs across the county are electing new officers or retaining some officers, so we're going to do some training in June to make sure we can keep our leadership skills top-notch, and advocating for the public school budget next week at the county council budget hearing. So thank you. Have a great day.
Thank you. We'll take a short break now to take pictures of the employee volunteer and an educator of the month. All right, we'll move on to the public comment portion of the meeting. Anyone wishing to speak on an item not on today's agenda may offer testimony during this public comment portion. Speakers will be allotted 3 minutes each, and the board asks that comments remain civil and appropriate for the various audiences that may be watching or viewing the meeting. Student-specific and personnel matters are confidential and cannot be discussed in this forum. This time is intended for speakers to voice their opinion and not necessarily as a question and answer period. Speakers may pose questions, but answers will be counted toward the 3-minute allotment. For the record, please give your name before speaking, and handouts should be given to the board assistant. I have one card, Claudia O'Keefe.
Hello, my name is Claudia O'Keefe. I'm a parent and former student in the county school system. Last year, Ms. Summer asked the school administration how 2 elementary schools of the same size could have very different state-rated capacities. The administration said it was too complicated to explain. Here's the answer. The state gives grades 1 through 5 a capacity of 23 students per classroom. Other rooms, like multi-purpose rooms, art rooms, music rooms, have a capacity of 0. Cross out classroom on the plans, replace it with multi-purpose room, the school capacity goes down without changing the size of the school. Ms. Sasso asked if the Community Ambassador Program includes Hispanic ambassadors. The administration refused to answer on grounds that identifies the race of school staff. They could have discussed if any Hispanic students are served by this program. They could have discussed if the Community Ambassador, if any of the Community Ambassadors speak Spanish. They did not. They did, however, publicly advertise for a Spanish-speaking Community Ambassador last December. Mr. Grannon requested a report detailing how 2 late-starting elementary schools could be shifted back to dismiss before 4 p.m. This was more than a request. It was a motion approved by majority vote of the board. It was an order. Again, there was no report, just a verbal no. Here are a couple of simple options that could have been presented. Mead Heights, 9 buses, and Hebron Harmon, 12 buses, could start one after the other at virtually any time of day with the addition of 12 buses, costing about $700,000. That cost is partially offset by fuel tax savings. That's the simplest option, not the cheapest. Option 2, Mead Heights could take advantage of gaps in the school bus routes and run from 825 to 250 with the addition of 7 or fewer buses. The current routes for Mead Heights could be backfilled by Hebron Harmon buses, pulling that school back by 10 minutes to dismiss just 5 minutes later from current hours. The cost of this option is about $400,000, or about the same as what's saved in gas tax exemptions, resulting in a net 0 cost, no change to the budget. This analysis took all of 5 minutes in the back of an envelope, this envelope. Your administration wouldn't even afford the board 5 minutes of effort to help over 1,000 elementary students. A third option involves using University of Maryland's optimization algorithm, an option that has 0 cost and would most likely result in cost savings and fewer buses. According to Mr. Douglas's testimony last month, all bus routes have been entered into the software. That's more than enough data to run the optimization algorithm and save money on buses, an estimated 5%. 5% of a $50 million budget is $2.5 million you could be saving. I truly believe all your hearts are in the right place. You ask very, very good questions. You get lousy answers. The administration isn't answering your questions, isn't providing the information that you request, that you require of them. What are the consequences of this inaction? If the administration is not accountable to you, the school board, then to whom are they accountable? Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who would like to address the board at this time? All right, we'll move on to consent items. We just have one today, item 4.01, award of contracts, site work for Jessup Elementary School replacement. This is an information to action item. Do I have a motion to move this from information to action? All those in favor? We now have an action item. Dr. McMahon, your recommendation.
The superintendent recommends that the Board of Education award contract 17 CN 161, site work for Jessup Elementary School replacement, to Urban and Zinc contractor in the amount of $9,033,000 and $33,070.
Second.
Is there any board discussion? I do have one card on this item. Scott Livingston.
Good morning. My name is Scott Livingston. I'm an attorney, and I represent C.J. Miller, the second low-priced bidder for this project. The difference in money is X dollars, but my client, met the minority business enterprise goal, didn't ask for a waiver. By contrast, the low bidder did ask for a waiver. It only achieved about 2/3 of the 35% goal. Here's why that gets significant. The way the board ruled on it below, the supervisor, all you have to do next time is don't contact very many MBEs, just enough to have 2/3 of the goal, and then assert that you're going to do the rest of the work with your own forces. That's a way to do things, and that's what all of the potential contractors that I advise are going to be given advice, lest you treat equal cases unequally and deny a waiver next time. The bad thing about that is that the MBE program, well, if you're an advocate of MBE programs, which I happen to be, because when I was an assistant attorney general, I drafted it 40 years ago, and I still think it's a good thing. And it's a core value, inclusiveness and diversity. It's a core value of CJ companies. They almost never request a waiver. And occasionally it costs more. Well, it may cost more and get reflected in a higher price, but at least the General Assembly has concluded that that's a price worth paying in order to remedy the lingering effects of past societal or race discrimination. All that highfalutin stuff means is that we follow the rules. Urban Zinc put in its request for a waiver, and if it gets granted under these circumstances, it's going to invite other bidders to say, well, Anne Arundel County doesn't much really mean that stuff. We'll not get as much MBE participation as the aspirational goal calls for. We'll go in and get a cheaper price, get awarded it, and we'll get a waiver, because that's what my old friend Mary Jo Childs said was the proper way to handle this particular bid protest. Under the circumstances, I'd like an opportunity to be heard on the merits of the bid protests other than after the contract gets awarded. So right now it's poised to be awarded. I'm not even sure if you didn't already vote for that with that last vote for the consent routine budget or agenda. But the setting here is that you want to have a bidder have an opportunity to be heard in a fair manner, open meeting like this. And if we get awarded the contract a week or two or 3, 4 later from now, it won't matter to the board, because we'll still have to complete the project in a timely manner in accordance with the project schedule. It means we'll have more overtime. It means we might work 6 days instead of 5. But your deadlines will all be set, so it won't affect the follow-on 15 or so contractors that need to work on this project. I brought with me Mr. Dave Weller, and he's here to promise you that, yep, if he gets awarded it'll be done on time.
In our 59 years of business, we have never failed to meet a contract deadline, and we always play within the rules that are provided to us. It's just very disheartening to see that others are allowed to skate around those rules that are established.
Thank you very much. We appreciate the opportunity to be heard.
Thank you. We have a motion that's been seconded to approve the contract. All those in favor? Opposed? All right, motion passes. Action items 5.01, administrative personnel appointments. Dr. McMahon, your recommendation.
The superintendent recommends that the personnel listed on the attached sheet be promoted and/or appointed.
So moved. Second.
All those in favor? Motion passes 6-0. Item 5.02 is personnel. Dr. McMahon, your recommendation.
Superintendent recommends that the board approve the actions as stipulated on the attached sheets.
Mrs. Nally?
3 of my colleagues are retiring, and I have to say something because they really have, the 3 of them together have contributed over 120 years of service to Anne Arundel County Public Schools. Gwen Atkinson, Louise DeJesus, and Lynn Evans. Louise particularly has spent 47 years in Anne Arundel County Public Schools. And I want to commend these 3 principals and tell them how much I will miss them and how much the system will miss them. Thank you.
Mrs. Summer?
Yes, I was looking over the list. We have 11 employees who've announced their retirements at the end of this year. Those 11 employees together represent 345 years of service in education. And I think that's incredible. And we are so grateful for that they have given their careers to our children.
Mrs. Birch.
I think part of the reason that Carolyn didn't come today was because she didn't want to endorse in any way Mrs. DeChesu retiring, because she's a little distressed about it. And she was thinking about, even though it's not really a vote on the retirements, she was thinking about voting no on this package because that was going to be in there.
And I'd like to give a shout out to Lynn Bridebell and Gail Cicero, who both helped educate my 4 children, and they will be greatly missed. All those in favor? Motion passes 6-0. The next 3 items on the agenda are policy revisions. These are all third readings for action. The first one is item 5.03, employee use of social media code GAOO.
The superintendent recommends approval of policy GAOO, subject to final correction for style and format.
Is there any public comment on this item? All those in favor? Motion passes 5-0. Item 5.04 is the student use of social media, policy JCCC. Dr. McMahon.
Superintendent recommends approval of policy JCCC, subject to final correction for style and format.
Is there any public comment on this item? All those in favor? Motion passes 6-0. I can't count today. Item 5.05, an action item, policy IKB, student assembly programs for political candidates.
The superintendent recommends approval of policy IKB, subject to final correction for style and format.
Is there any public comment on this item? All those in favor? Motion passes 6-0. The next item on the agenda is item 5.06, new course approvals. This is an information to action item. I do have a note that one of the 5 courses on here, English language acquisition, civics, and citizenship, will not be considered today, but the rest are still on the agenda. Do I have a motion to move this from information to action? All those in favor? We now have an action item. Dr. McMahon.
The superintendent recommends approval of these courses beginning with the 2017-2018 school year.
Do I have a second? Mrs. Hummer.
So I'm reading the descriptions of the Bridge to Algebra 2 and the Function Focus classes. What is the difference between the 2 classes? Because they both are scheduled for students who don't necessarily pass the state test for algebra and believe that there's more resource. So what's the difference between the 2 classes?
Certainly. For the record, my name is Skip Lee. I'm the Director of Curriculum. I brought Kevin Wajak, the Coordinator of Secondary Mathematics, to address that question.
Good morning. For the record, my name is Kevin Wajak. I'm the Coordinator of High School Mathematics for our district. So the first course, Bridge to Algebra 2, will be a remediation experience for students that affords them the opportunity to see previously learned content in Algebra 1 in a new and enriching way through the lens of science and architecture and art in an effort to help those students really finalize and formalize those skills such that they are able to be successful in subsequent courses. The second course is intended as a very similar experience, but in skills that the students have yet been exposed to, in an effort to kind of pre-teach some of the standards that they will see in subsequent coursework, but also to really hook that interest in mathematics in the real world, such that when they move on to subsequent coursework like Algebra 2 or a higher level statistics course, that they are more ready to be successful and college and career ready as they exit our system.
So will these be classes that that we steer students toward, or is it one that it will just that they could pick if they wanted to?
Yeah, Great question, and the answer is yes to both. We would absolutely help students who we think would be best suited in these courses see the merits of the courses and the benefits of taking them. As well, students who kind of just feel compelled to do more math, which makes my heart happy, would absolutely be welcomed into those courses.
So when we do the math sequencing, generally is Algebra 1, Geometry, Algebra 2. For some of our students that need these additional classes to do that, will they be able to go directly into Algebra 2? My concern is that if they take that year for geometry, some of that remediation is lost but before they get to Algebra 2, but they don't have that year in the sequencing.
Again, an excellent question, and really we would help support schools support students in what's best. Courses could be taken concurrently, or they could be taken as part of the course sequence. So as a sophomore or a junior, these courses would be ideal kind of for either student. And you're absolutely right, helping with that kind of algebra slide that we often refer to with reading in the summer, we would help do that work. Our current course sequence also works to support that. We do a lot of algebra in geometry, but it is through that very specific lens where these courses would afford students an additional lens to kind of both maintain skills, but also continue to grow that interest in mathematics. So yes and yes.
And this is going to be, they're going to be offered at all of our high schools?
Absolutely.
Okay. And then now I have another one for the next class that's down. So for the English language acquisition career literacy, is this going to be offered, I know it's specifically for some of our older students that are in there, is it offered in the regular high school, or is this just an evening high school class, or where specifically will this class be offered, available?
I brought Kelly Ryder, the coordinator for English language acquisition, to address that.
Sure. Kelly Ryder, a coordinator for English language acquisition. This course is targeted for those in the newcomer center who are coming in with low levels of literacy. The content of the literacy course is paired with their career pathways to give them functional literacy skills for future careers.
So it's not a regular offering in the course catalog for every student necessarily. This is targeted for our newcomer students.
Correct.
Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay. And one other one is the historical inquiry class for the AP U.S. History. Do we have something like this now? An additional, I thought there was an additional support class for AP History.
So you're correct. We have seminar that's available for the AP level courses. This has a unique niche to it, and I brought Tim Johnson here to address that.
Good morning. Tim Johnson, teacher specialist in the Office of Social Studies. A few years ago, AP restructured the AP history courses, starting with United States history, then into European and world history. And what we found is the seminar course was morphing much more into from a study skills course to really diving into rigorous work with historical thinking skills. And that gave us the springboard to rewrite that companion course to U.S. history to what the course had already organically transitioned to. And we felt that the level of work coming out of those students was at the very least commensurate with the work in our other honors courses.
So this will be replacing the seminar?
For AP U.S. History, yes.
Okay. It's not required for students who take AP History, but it's an additional to assist them with that. And it will be offered at all of our high schools that have the AP History class?
Yes, there is a caveat. It is specifically designed to support our 9th graders taking AP U.S. History for the first time to build their skill set and to give them the additional supports that they need as freshmen in a first-time AP course.
Okay. So thank you very much.
Ms. Sasso.
You mentioned, Stacy, that the English language acquisition, civics, and citizenship would be not voted on today. Is there any reason why it has been held back?
Yes, ma'am. Kelly?
We have decided not to move forward with that course at this time because after doing a little bit more research into the requirements for taking the citizenship test, the students who we currently have in the newcomer program would not be eligible for at least 7 years. And in talking with students, they felt that that goal was too far out for them right now, and they preferred courses that dealt with their immediate needs.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Gilliland.
Thank you, Madam President, and thank you for this package. I want to just ask about algebra in general, if that's okay. The Bridge to Algebra 2 course, I get it, I understand why. I guess some of my concern is if we're not doing the real-world application enough in Algebra 1, are we discouraging students from math, or are we disheartening them, at least those who may not be performing as well? So I guess, you know, that's more of a theoretical question that can spark debate, and I don't want to do that. But if this course does offer learning assets and resources that can help Algebra 1 teachers and those students, would those be available to use for those Algebra 1 teachers? Yeah.
So a great question. And in that, I would answer it by saying that we absolutely do the things that I've talked about in our Algebra 1 program currently, but there is a broader set of standards for students within that course. The proposed course would focus solely on the core three functions that students study in Algebra 1, so linear, exponential, and quadratic functions. In the Algebra 1 course, they also do a deep dive into statistics as a standard, some probability, and other standards that are also really great for students in their trajectory of learning. But this course would specifically target those three because those are things that they will really need to be successful with to move forward in subsequent courses. So they are getting tons of modeling and constructivist theory in the Algebra 1 course currently. It is absolutely not a course where they just do procedural mathematics. This course will just be different, and it will be new experiences for them so that it is not a repeat of anything that they have in an effort to springboard them back onto the trajectory that we hope that they have while they're a high school student.
Thank you.
Is there any public comment on this item? All those in favor? Motion passes 7-0. Thank you.
Thank you.
5.07 is food and nutrition services pricing for 17-18 school year. This is an information to action item. Do I have a motion to move this from information to action?
So move.
Second.
All those in favor? We now have an action item. Dr. McMahon, your recommendation.
The superintendent recommends no increase in the food and nutrition services pricing for the 2017-18 school year.
Second.
Mrs. Hummer.
I just have a couple of questions. What is the difference between Maryland Meals for Achievement and Breakfast with Class?
Good morning. For the record, Jody Rissy, Supervisor of Food and Nutrition Services here in Anne Arundel County Public Schools. Maryland Meals for Achievement is a state-funded, in-classroom, free breakfast for all students. So we currently have that in 47 schools. Breakfast in the class, our students still come either to a kiosk for a grab-and-go option like they do at Northeast High School, or they would come through the serving line. They pay their current pay, be it paid, free, or reduced, and then they eat with their classmates and the teacher in the classroom.
Okay.
So the pay is different.
And then what's the difference between that and Second Chance Breakfast?
So Second Chance Breakfast is Northeast High School. That's where it's from, the kiosk. So
Okay.
our high schools do it after first period. We have 4 high schools that participate that. The breakfast in the class is typically elementary and middle schools. They still come through the line. They pay their breakfast rate accordingly, and they eat in their classroom.
And they go back to the classroom. Whereas Maryland Meals for Achievement, it brings the food to the classroom, for every student.
And it is free for all students for Maryland Meals for Achievement.
Okay. And then my last question is, what exactly is the Child and Adult Care Food Program?
I would love to talk about that program. That's a new program that we've implemented in 2011 in Anne Arundel County. We do dinner meals on Saturday, and it also can extend to outside communities. So different agencies are partnering with us, like Recreation and Parks, and we're able to provide dinner meals to their students that are in aftercare.
Okay, and great. All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Mrs. Birch.
Okay, so Mrs. Hummer had the touchy-feely questions, and I have the number questions. How, 3 years in a row, have you been able to keep your monthly fund balance high enough to not have to raise the rates? And what is the monthly fund balance? Because I know that's I know you want to have enough money on hand to pay a certain amount of bills because you need to pay ahead. and that's one of the ways that you decide whether or not you need to raise prices. So.
Sure. Let me address the first piece of it. Alex Shaknova, Chief Operating Officer. So our operational targets for our fund balance is between 2 to 3%. So for the last 3 years, in 15 we were 2.11%. In 16 we were 2.59%. Those are actuals. In 17 we're at 2.13%. Projected, we're a month away from that. And again, we project to be within that range as well. So we always work closely with Food Nutrition Services Accounting and then your auditor, Mr. Fedowitz, to ensure that we stay within the confines of those parameters that have been established for us by this board. In terms of sales and profits, I'll turn that over to Ms. Rissy.
Thank you. I think we have phenomenal staff. You know, support from the board, obviously, and executive team is phenomenal, but the staff that I have are fantastic. The nutritious meals that we provide are clearly leading the nation. We do salad bars. I know many of you have seen our salad bars in all of our schools. Nutrition is so important to us, and I think the more fresh fruits and vegetables that we offer, the more local that we infuse into our menus, and we always have our students part of our testing process, our participation continues to go up. So with really effective business practices in place and having our participation goes up, it really allows us to do the great things we do.
And that's on the volume side, and the other two elements are because of volume, Ms. Rissy and purchasing work aggressively to get economies of scale. So we're buying the commodity at a preferential pricing structure, and then to the extent that either the federal or government or grant programs continue to provide more revenue per head or grant opportunities, Food and Nutrition Services is very aggressive to make sure that we're maximizing the revenue that we get from those supporting agencies, which again help us not have to then transfer the cost directly into the pocket of the students and families.
Well, congratulations, because you're obviously doing something right, and we all appreciate your hard work.
Thank you.
Dr. McMahon.
I would be remiss if I didn't thank you, and thank you for your leadership on behalf of our superintendent, who I know would say it's your leadership and your creative, amazing approach, innovation, your partnerships you build with the community that really take us where we are, and not only all of that, but your efficiency. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for the opportunity.
I'd like to echo that. Thank you for keeping the prices down for our students and families. That's really why we're here. Thank you. Item 5. Oh, we still have to vote. All those in favor? Motion passes 7-0. Item 5.08 is the stormwater management inspection and maintenance agreements for Arnold, George Cromwell, Jessup Park, Riviera Beach, Shadyside Elementary Schools, and the Fort Smallwood Facilities Complex. This is an information to action item. Do I have a motion to move this from information to action? Second. All those in favor? We now have an action item. Dr. McMahon.
The superintendent recommends approval of the Arnold, George Cromwell, Jessup Park, Revere Beach, Shadyside Elementary Schools, and the Fort Smallwood Facilities Complex stormwater management inspection and maintenance agreements.
Do we have any board questions? Do we have any public comment? All those in favor? Motion passes 7-0. Thank you. The next 3 items are schematic designs for Edgewater Elementary, Tyler Heights, and Richard Henry Lee. I'd like a motion to bundle 5.09 through 5.11 and move them from information to action. All those in favor? We now have an action item. Dr. McMahon.
The superintendent recommends approval of the Edgewater Elementary School, Tyler Heights Elementary School, and Richard Henry Lee Elementary School revitalization schematic designs.
And we have presentations, right?
Good morning, President Korbelak, members of the board, Dr. McMahon. For the record, my name is Lisa Seaman Crawford, Director of Facilities. The next 3 items presented will be the schematic designs for the revitalizations of Edgewater, Tyler Heights, and Richard Henry Lee Elementary Schools. During the feasibility studies in October 2016, the revitalization option was selected for all 3 schools. The next step in the process is the schematic design phase. The schematic design translates the educational specifications into drawings, which establish spatial relationships, adjacencies, and circulation patterns for both the building and the site. Larry will walk you through briefly the project summary for Edgewater Elementary School, and then Jeff will run through the plans and site plans for you.
Larry Albert, Supervisor of Planning, Design, and Construction. The Edgewater project was, your ed specs were approved 1 year ago, actually, May 4th. And as Lisa said, we had the feasibility was approved last October. Project for this school would increase the capacity from 455 to 679 students. This is the same as was approved in the ed specs and the feasibility study. We're on target for the budget at the moment and the schedule. And with that, we'll quickly run through the floor plans for you.
Good morning. I'm Jeff Hagan with Horde Copeland Architects, and I'm going to walk you through the existing conditions first. If I could have the next slide, please. We're viewing the existing site plan, and the way the school is currently oriented, the school is off of Washington Road, but the main entry to the school faces to the west on the parking lot area where the student drop-off loop is. We're going to change that up in the new plan. I'll show you that in a moment. The bus loop comes off a separate area on Washington Road at the top of the plan, and then we have relocatable classrooms located in the back of the building on the east side there. Next slide. This is our proposed site plan. As I mentioned, we're going to change the location of the front entry to the building. So when we build the addition, which is in the lighter tan color on the plan there, we're going to move the front entry to face Washington Road. And one of the reasons for this is it's twofold. One, it's a phasing item which will help us when we want to keep the existing building up and running. We can keep the existing entry up and running and then build the new entry. But secondly, the way the school currently functions, when students are dropped off by car and bus, they enter through two different entrances, and the school has requested that they all converge at one main entry point, which is what we're going to provide in this new plan. Parking will be split. We'll have parking in the existing location on the west side, and then we'll have additional parking over on the east side, which will also serve as the new student drop-off loop over there. Bus loop will be revised, but essentially stay in the same location. And then I'll walk you through the existing floor plan first. You can see it's essentially a kind of a morphed L-shaped building. We're going to close that off, and I'll show you that in a moment in the new plan. The front entry to the building is facing to the bottom of the plan. You enter in, and admin is to your right. As you make a left down that long hallway, you head towards the cafetorium. And as you go to the left, or excuse me, go to the left to the cafetorium, go to the right, and then down the main hallway, it takes you back to the gymnasium. We're going to repurpose those spaces, and I'll show you that in a moment. The majority of the building will remain and be renovated in place, and then we're going to expand it, with the exception of a couple of key areas that we're going to do some selective demolition. If you look at the media center, kind of at the heart of the building there, we're going to take the piece to the left off, and that will allow us to connect the new building more cleanly to the existing building. We also have at the end of that far portion of the plan to your right, there are 3 classrooms there that are modular classrooms. They're temporary spaces that were put in the 1980s. Those will come away, and we'll replace that with more permanent construction. So if we go to the next slide, you'll see now the proposed plan. We're closing off the loop of that L, so we're going to have a continuous loop of circulation in the new plan. The front entry is in this plan is to your left upper corner. You'll see the red arrow there. You'll enter through a secure vestibule. Admin is in the light green above. And then we've created a Main Street corridor. As you walk down, you'll pass by a new gymnasium. And then the existing gymnasium is now repurposed as a cafeteria, which we were very fortunate that the cafeteria, or the existing gym space, was the exact size we needed for a cafeteria. So we're able to reuse that space and then build a new gym to the proper size for the current ed specs. As you continue around the loop of the building, we're replacing those classrooms, as I mentioned, at the end of that far corridor on the right. We're renovating the rest of the spaces as we come along the courtyard side. We have art and the learning studios facing the courtyard, which makes for some nice outdoor learning spaces. And then the loop continues back around to where the existing cafeteria is, and that's going to be repurposed as the new media center. So we're able to reuse that space. We'll do some selective demolition to the existing kitchen to open that up and bring some natural light into the space, but we can reuse that nice volume of space for a new media center. And then as you return back up near the front entry, we have the early childhood classrooms, which will be located near the front of the building for easy access for the small children. And they have nice views into the courtyard. The other thing we're able to achieve with the plan is all of the major classroom spaces will have natural light. Certainly all the new spaces will, and then we're able to achieve that with the existing spaces that we're renovating. So we think we've created a nice efficient plan here, worked very closely with Anne Arundel County Schools and with the school itself and the faculty and staff there, and have created this proposed plan as you see before you today.
Thank you. Are there any board questions about the Edgewater plan? Is there any public questions or comments? All right, then we'll move on to Tyler Heights.
Robin Toth from TCA Architects has joined us. So I'll move it over to Larry.
Again, the ed specs and the feasibility studies were all presented at the same time as the previous project. One thing that I did not bring up previously, but all our projects do involve, in addition to the architect engineering staff and my staff, we also include parents, usually from the PTA, but parents, we have principals, teachers. Some of the projects have custodial, and we also have a representative from MSDE who we work with on all these projects. Tyler Heights, the largest difference with Tyler Heights is we've done some redistricting. So we have modified the capacity from what you previously saw during the ed specs and the feasibility studies. We've removed 2 classrooms. So the current capacity is 442. We have 582. We feel that's sufficient not only for the redistricting, but to handle the number of students going to Monarch or who may stay there and not elect to go to Monarch. So with that, I'll let Robin run through the floor plans. No, it's all yours.
Good morning. Here you see the existing plan. Towards the right of the bus loop, that is the main entrance for the site, the way they have the signage up. So everyone is entering down there, whether it be a bus or a parent dropping off. We're going to work to improve that in the proposed site plan. In addition, you'll see there's only 64 parking spaces for approximately 90 staffers. So again, we will improve that condition because right now there's street parking. There is no backstop in the play fields, which we will provide, and also there's no existing stormwater management because that wouldn't have been part of the original design, and so they have issues with ponding water in the play areas, and again, those things will be improved in the new design. Moving over to the next slide. In the proposed design, you can see the red portion is our addition. If you're wondering, the angled area on the side is provides a couple of different advantages. One of it is being able to reduce the amount of grading and cost to the building, and also to preserve as many of the trees on site. There's a nice wooded buffer along that line that we're trying to preserve so that we don't have to do more planting elsewhere. The addition will also allow for a loop circulation, which you'll see in the proposed plan, and also provides the opportunity for a new courtyard, which again will give great outdoor learning experiences to the students. As far as circulation to the building, you can now see there are 2 separate entrances, which will both be two-way. The one all the way to the right will be for buses and for service vehicles and some of the staff parking, and it will give them loop circulation, and they will be able to exit to the right. On the left-hand side will be for the cars and visitors and parent drop-off, and we provided a long lane for stacking of parents as they come to pick up and drop off their children. So it should help the vehicular congestion on site. Also, you will see we've have placeholders on the plan for stormwater management as we work through the process during the next phase, and you can see that there are properly sized play fields with a softball field and play areas both mulched and paved for the students. Moving on to the next slide. here is your existing plan, much like the last school. It is an L-shaped design. The main entrance is down in the bottom left-hand corner where there's a red arrow. The entrance is tucked back. The main office has limited visibility as they're trying to keep an eye on the front of the building. It should be mentioned this school was designed in 1962 to those standards and has not had any major renovations in the time period. So many things like the main office, the health suite, they're both undersized. The multi-purpose room is both a cafeteria and a stage, and a gymnasium. The toilet rooms would not be ADA compliant, and there are multiple portables that have been placed on site to accommodate the population that has grown. In addition, many of those portables are supporting the resource programs that are needed for this school and some of the classrooms. The both music programs and art programs are undersized in this original plan, as are the early childhood classrooms. Moving on to the next plan, the proposed plan. As you can see here, we have created the looped circulation as was discussed earlier. The main entrance will be moved all the way over to the right where the red arrow is. We'll have a small addition in the pink area which represents the admin area, and that will, projecting them out, will give them better visibility of the front, both the bus and the parent drop-off. You can see the main corridor to the right tapers with that angle that we spoke of earlier, and that allows both the preservation of site resources and reducing the budget, or the construction budget. It also tapers down as you go from the public spaces to the private spaces in the back. We have all of the early childhood along the back in a row, and they will have easy access to their play areas. They're all shown in blue. In the bottom right-hand corner, there's space for the before and after care near the drop-off and pickup areas. You also have your music in the far right-hand corner with direct access to the platform. The cafeteria and gymnasium are above that. They're separated, but we'll have an operable wall to open up for a larger space. The cafeteria will have natural daylight to the left with glazing that will open up to the courtyard for nice views and daylight. There'll be a new kitchen and new mechanical spaces which will support all of the new building systems that are part of this revitalization project. In purple, you can see those are resource spaces, and they are allocated around the building now for access at all the different grade levels. There's also small pink spaces, which are toilet rooms for the staff that again are allocated in all four corners. You have 18 classrooms, which are shown in beige. And you'll have 2 learning studios, one in the top left-hand corner and one that has access to the courtyard. The art room will be moved along the horizontal area near the admin suite, and it will have the preferred northern exposure, and also will have access out to the courtyard for outdoor experiences. And finally, on the bottom left-hand corner is your media center, which again we will use the existing multi-purpose space to create the media center because it's a nice volume, and we will add natural daylight to that space also.
All right, Mr. Gilliland.
Thank you, and thank you for the presentation. I think all 3 of these plans are excellent. I appreciate the fact you noted the handicap spots. And maybe it's just a broader question, but is there a formula that we use? So in this case, 115 spaces, 7 are handicap. And this, I believe, this has the most parking spaces of any of the schools. But is there a formula that we need to adhere to, or is that just a magic number that we invent?
It's a code requirement. Okay. The number of handicap spaces per parking spaces, overall parking spaces. Yes.
Thank you.
Mrs. Birch.
So I noticed that the early childhood ed classrooms are not next to the office where we usually have them next to the office. Was that just not going to work because of where playgrounds are and things like that?
In
trying to preserve the existing structure because we are going to repurpose. We will revitalize and renovate all of the existing classrooms, but in trying to work with the existing constraints of the structure, it made logical sense to put it in the addition where they could be properly sized and configured, and the planning committee was in agreement with having it in that location with the access to the play areas.
Okay. And I noticed also that the first grade classrooms are also going to have toilets, but not for the grades over that. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay. Is that just so that if you needed to use them for a kindergarten classroom, you could do that?
It goes back to being the revitalization part of it, and we've also had a lot of discussions with instruction as to which grades need it the most, which is kindergarten and first grade, or pre-K also, because that's the large number of blue rooms in this case, which is because Tyler Heights does have a very large pre-K population as well as kindergarten. Currently, pre-K is at Georgetown East. The intent is to bring them back.
Right.
So that's, again, part of the reason it looks a little different than some of the other floor plans you might see.
The only thing I'm concerned about is there's no restrooms close to the gym and cafeteria. No.
They are across the hall, north of the admin suite. There's a yellow block right near the courtyard. So they're right near the main entrance. Yes, there's boys and girls.
Plus one off the gym.
Oh, and then there are single stalls for the students.
Off the cafeteria.
From the gymnasium where the brown mechanical space is, there's a corridor, and there would be 2 there that would be able to be used in off hours.
Okay. All right.
Are there any public comments or questions on Tyler Heights? All right, thank you. We'll do Richard Henry Lee.
Well, we're waiting for Kieran to come up. I'll update you real quickly on Richard Henry Lee. Again, it's been on the same schedule, glide path as all the other projects. That particular school is going to have 578. It is the state-rated capacity for it, although currently it has 479 as the SRC. The enrollment is relatively high at the moment, but we do look at the overall patterns for the school, and we do think it's going to be coming down a little bit, so there should be plenty of space for classes.
Great. Good morning, everyone. I'm Kieran Wilmus, principal with Griffin Park Architects. I'm happy to be here. We've had a terrific schematic process, collaborative process with both Larry and Lisa's group and the school committee. I think Principal Woolleyhand is here with us today, and I just want to thank him for his dedication pulling his committee together on a very challenging site. You can see the site plan in front of you. This is the existing condition. It's less than 5 acres. It's a very constrained site, really more of an urban condition in the center of Glen Burnie. So we're bound on streets by all 4 sides. And the existing condition, you can see the main entrance right now, the purple arrow on the A Street facade towards the east end of that building. Very constricted dimension there, bus drop-off on that side, very little sort of front porch area before you come into the front door. Cars queue in that light blue line. You can see they start to wrap around 2, if not 3 sides of the site. There's no dedicated drop-off area there. That's off-street. And we have a very busy crossing guard on the corner of 8th Street and 4th Avenue. If you've been there in the morning, that is very busy trying to keep all of this separated and kids safe as they navigate the neighborhood streets. So again, we're dealing with a very, very tight site and trying to solve a lot of issues in the new plan. We can go to the next slide, please. So this is the proposed solution for the new site plan. We really want to create separation, safe separation between cars and buses. B Street to the west side of the building has a wider street section and can allow safe curbside bus departure there. We're reorienting the main entrance down to the south, to the 5th Avenue side. 5th Avenue is a rather busy street. We don't want to bring cars on and off of it directly, but still maintain that parking lot access off the A Street side. So create more of a gracious entry sequence, a dedicated student drop-off by cars with parking lot in front of the building. So again, it was important to the committee to have all students from buses and cars come into one common main entrance with oversight and security and safety that provides. Also the before and after care, which is not in the current building now, would have its own dedicated entrance on the same facade, making ingress and egress very easy and safe to the building. I'm going to go inside of the existing plan. Existing building is a what we would call a split level condition. We come in right now off the A Street facade to the east, where the green arrow is, into a one-story at-grade block that houses administration, media center, and a few classrooms now. As you move into the classroom wing to the left side of the plan, you go down about 4 feet to the lowest level and up about 8 feet to the higher classroom level. These are classic early 70s open classroom conditions. It's a very peculiar block size because it doesn't afford natural light into the deepest parts of the instructional spaces. Right now they're separated by essentially systems furniture partitions. It's a very compromised educational environment right now. So it's also a very challenge in its height. 12-foot floor to floor doesn't allow us to bring in 21st century building systems. And also, again, proportionally doesn't give us access to good daylight there. So we're proposing in this solution to actually demolish a large portion of that 2-story wing and create a condition that lets us deliver your ed spec and the modern systems it needs to service it. So we can go to the next slide, please, and show you that demolition diagram. The shaded areas called renovation are going to be existing to remain. We're going to keep as much of that as we can. That hatched block is a 2-story block, again, that split level condition that we're going to demolish and then rebuild to optimize new program areas. And you can see that area shaded in blue below. Going into the new plans on the next page, again, reimagining that main entrance from the south, from the 5th Street side, gives us the opportunity to again, rebuild that in a more idealized condition. Our new addition includes administration area, health and guidance, as well as the public areas, the gym, the cafeteria, and the stage, which again can create that idealized condition of the operable in between for large events, and taller volumes for spaces like music. The existing wing will be converted to serve the new program areas. So for instance, the existing gymnasium will be converted into the before and after care, again taking advantage of that high volume space with access to that parking lot to the south. The existing cafeteria multipurpose room on the southeast corner will be repurposed for early childhood, so they have a dedicated cluster there with access to their own dedicated play areas directly outdoors. The media center will remain in its current location but will be enclosed. Right now it's kind of in an open plan condition. That'll be enclosed with as much transparency as we can provide, with a centralized courtyard that provides daylight to a space that currently doesn't have it. It was important to the committee to have grade level clusters that were easily identifiable. So we're providing clusters for early childhood, as I mentioned, and then 1st, 2nd, and 3rd grades all on this first floor. We are maintaining that slight split in the site to minimize the earthwork, so we're not having to haul in a lot of expensive soil onto a very constrained site that's difficult to balance otherwise. So again, we're taking advantage of that grade change with a few steps and ramps, again, to mediate that grade change, but still respect and mitigate the earthwork condition that's out there now. Upstairs, we're going to have the 4th and 5th grade clusters rounding out the rest of the program. And incidentally, the interior courtyard is going to provide natural light to the learning labs in purple and the art space as well, to give them some outdoor space to do their programs. So thank you. Happy to take any questions.
Mr. Gilliland.
Thank you again. And I think you hit the nail on the head when you said this is just a challenging area to navigate. And what really struck me was the reduction of parking spaces. For whatever, I don't know why parking's on my mind today, but so 59 to 41. So that reduction, maybe an unfair question for you, but you know, it's maybe a staff question, but not your area. Do we know the number of faculty and staff in that building, and are people not going to be able to park?
We're going to strive to increase that number if we can. This is a conservative number at best. As we know, we're dealing with a lot of compromised positions, from fields and play areas to parking. Safety and security was the paramount concern, so we wanted to make sure we address those issues first. It's possible to increase that parking area. It would just reduce the green space available for the kids for outdoor recess. So we're going to work in the next phase to find that balance and make sure we can provide as much parking as possible.
Thank you.
Sure.
Mrs. Hummer.
Along A Street, is there a sidewalk along there in front of the school for
There
kids,
is.
for students to walk in? I just couldn't quite tell from the picture. And I know, like you said, because of this challenging plot, the play spaces is difficult. Where it says soft play and paved play, are those playgrounds? What's the?
That's right. So there's two areas on your screen now. The ones to the bottom right are dedicated for early childhood. Those would be paved play and soft play, dedicated for the little guys. That's going to be enclosed and accessible through a corridor from inside the building. The soft play, and it looks like this plan might not have the paved play area, would be accessed in the corridor between the administration and the gym. That would be for the upper grade levels, and again, fully fenced and enclosed, because there are some security concerns on this site.
It's still going to be, I don't know, there's no way around it with this spot that doesn't, it's a kind of limited play space for kids.
It is. So these areas are we're accounting for each play area. They're slightly smaller than typical program because of the constraints.
This is going to be very similar to West Annapolis in that very small site, and we're trying to put twice as many kids on the site.
Right, to have on there. Now, because we're demolishing, I've been in it once, and you're right, the split level bizarreness of this building. So by demolishing that one area, it's not going to be quite as much of the up and down throughout.
We're going to reduce that. Like I mentioned, we looked at leveling it all off, and that would require, like I said, a phenomenal amount of earthwork that we don't feel the budget can really take. So we're actually trying to get a both-and condition. We're trying to respect the earthwork that's there and also capitalize on the grade change and create some interesting spaces with perhaps some seating areas or gathering spaces where that grade change is taken up inside the building. And of course there'll be ramps for accessibility, and that happens near the main entrance in a larger area, just to handle all that circulation and movement of students, and then a smaller area to the top corridor there you can see between the existing and new buildings.
Are the students going to have to be moved out? I would think so. With this demolition now, we're going to have to move them. Where will they go?
Corcoran? We're looking at Corcoran right now.
Okay.
Mrs. Burge?
Two things. First, thinking about the parking, there is a lot of street parking in this area, though, isn't there?
There is.
Okay, so unlike some areas where you can't park on the street, you're parking on a road in a ditch or something like that. So at least we have that advantage there. My other thought, you talk about how the community is involved in these. I know that we had representatives from the community at Richard Henry Lee who were very concerned about the fact that we had chosen revitalization instead of a replacement school. In your work with them, did the community representatives, the PTA representatives, seem to realize that this wasn't a Band-Aid, that this was creating the space that they had hoped for?
Great question, and that was a major concern of ours too. And I don't want to speak for the committee. I can tell you again, they've been very engaged. We actually held many of our schematic design meetings in other facilities that have been renovated or reimagined. So Point Pleasance, for instance, we went to Benfield. The folks came after work, dedicated their evenings to these meetings to see what the possibilities were in these spaces. We shared a lot of images of other projects that we've done along those lines to help show them the possibilities. So we feel that message resonated, and we hope that the plans answer their questions. Like I said, they've been very receptive and very instrumental in what you see in front of you. So,
great. Is there any public comment or questions on this item? All right. All those in favor of these three schematic designs? Motion passes 7-0. Thank you. Next, we have a review item 6.01, the County Executive's recommended FY18 operating and capital budget overview.
Good morning. For the record, I'm Alex Shaknovich, Chief Operating Officer. Please allow the rest of the panel to introduce themselves as well.
Matt Stansky, Director of Financial Operations.
And Lisa Seaman Crawford, Director of Facilities.
And it's our intention to present an overview of the County Executive's proposed capital and operating budgets for FY18. His proposals were put forward on May the 1st, as is required by county charter. After consideration of the Board of Education's proposed budget recommendations, as well as those of other department and component units such as the community college and the library. What we propose to do is first provide the board with a briefing of the operating budget and then entertain any questions that the board might have with respect to the operating budget first. And then we'll set that aside and we'll do the same thing for the capital budget. We'll provide the board with a brief overview and some commentary on that and then entertain questions if that suits the board. So on the operating budget side, our operating budget request for this year that was put forward by the Board of Education was $1,172 million, which represented a $50.8 million increase year over year, 18 over 17. The county executive's proposal, including revenue from all sources, is for an increase year over year, 18 over 17, of $32.1 million. That's the net increase. On a percentage basis, the percentage increase that was requested at the bottom of your page was a 4.53% increase year over year. The county executive's recommendation is for a 2.87% increase year over year. So we'll begin with an analysis of the revenue side. So that's the money coming in from the federal government. The budget that is currently under consideration by the county council would recognize a $200,000 reduction in federal revenue, largely due to the wealth inverse relationship with wealth. The state government, similarly, we would recognize a $2.8 million increase in government. That was downwardly forecast, as you recall, in earlier comments that we presented in February, again, largely correlated to wealth. The Board of Education had requested a $59.6 million increase from general county government. The request put forward directly inside of the maintenance of effort number is $26 million year-over-year increase. The maintenance of effort requirement for this upcoming fiscal year would be $6.2 million. The $26 million clearly exceeds the state mandated or state prescribed maintenance of effort requirement by $19.8 million. It is the largest increase year over year inside of MOE that we've been the beneficiaries of in quite some time. Going down to the restricted side of the budget, we anticipate that we would receive about a $2.3 million increase in restricted grants. That was recognized within the county executive's budget. Our internal service fund for healthcare, our health insurance fund, would have a decrease of $14 million because of, again, the continued expenses over revenues and the erosion of our healthcare fund balance. The food services budget that we spoke about momentarily, a few brief minutes ago, in spite of being able to keep the meal prices equal and have no fee increases, we anticipate that food and nutrition services would have an additional $2.5 million in revenue. The school district and the county government approached the state of Maryland with a non-recurring one-time exclusion request that amassed to $22.5 million. Upon consideration of the case that was put forward before the state superintendent and the state board, ultimately they did decide to grant us that waiver. It's important to note that those waivers are seldom granted. They're granted with a tremendous amount of reluctance and caution. The state puts a tremendous amount of due diligence into those. And as far as I'm aware, a $22.5 million waiver from the state of Maryland is likely the largest, or if not clearly amongst the largest, again, in recent times. And that is all due to the efforts and the partnership put forward in building the case for the state board with presenting the numbers and the plan for the state board and the partnership that they saw displayed on the part of the county executive and the county council and this board and our superintendent. So that comes in two different pieces then. The first piece is a $15 million non-recurring one-time fund infusion into the self-insurance fund. Now remember, last year there was a $10 million one-time exclusion approved by the state of Maryland. So this one's 15, but you have to net out the old 10, so it's essentially 5 million over last year, right? You have to take out the 10 last year, add back into 15. And then there's an additional $7.5 million, again, a one-time non-recurring funding source that would be available to help transition employees from the today's structure in terms of copays and premium splits over towards a new model that we're continuing to negotiate for. So that's on the revenue. Going down to the expense side, if you recall, Superintendent Arlotto's budget proposal that was put forward in December really had essentially 4 thematic components to it. First and foremost, Dr. Arlotto placed a tremendous amount of effort and conversation around solving the structural health care balance. And as you recall, the county, the superintendent's recommendation was for a $20.5 million inside of MOE solution to the healthcare issue. And I'll come back to that shortly. The second sort of main thematic element is that we absolutely have to continue to make every best effort to improve the compensation packages that we're able to afford to our employees, both the employees we currently have in order to be able to retain them, as well as employees that we continue to seek to recruit to replace those that have left us through retirement or relocation, resignation, et cetera. So that recruitment and retention element is critical to a school district our size, and the compensation package that we can afford to those employees is part and parcel to that recruitment effort. The third thematic area of critical import to the district is the fact that we are on target to open up a brand new contract school in Annapolis that will be run for us by the Children's School, the Monarch School, that's slated to open this September. And it is, in fact, on schedule to open. They have been enrolling and subscribing youngsters. The construction is going very well, and we see no reason for there to be any impediments for that to open. We also have a contract, tongue-in-cheek, a contract for a contract school. We have a contract with them, and we're obligated to pay the per student allocation, or per pupil allocation to them. So thankfully, that was recognized and funded. And then finally, the programmatic elements. So the programmatic elements are those that allow us to continue to address enrollment growth, continue to expand programs such as our STEM programs, our EEE programs. So taking those 4 large thematic areas and teasing them apart, in the area of healthcare, we have both a short, a medium, and a long-range plan. The short is not before you, but you probably are aware that the county executive released a press release not too long ago that he plans on introducing a 4th quarter transfer bill this month that would be voted on next month to provide $5 million to the Board of Education in FY17 in the current fiscal year to help us close the gap and be able to pay our bills between now and June 30th. $5 million is not mathematically sufficient. The board recalls that back in December we did a 2nd quarter transfer of $2 million. We're continuing to scrub the budgets at year-end closeout time to identify additional resources that we can move over to the healthcare fund at the end of our 4th quarter similarly. So we would be bringing an agenda item before this board shortly with a recommended amount upon the advice of the superintendent. Should the board approve that, we would then work with the county executive to introduce legislation on our behalf to the county council and have the county council hopefully recognize that 4th quarter transfer. So those 2 collective actions, the $5 million from the county executive's recommendation and then that of the superintendent, should help us close the gap and be able to close June 30th, the current fiscal year, FY17, out on at least a balanced footing. That does not resolve the issue that befalls upon us come July 1, the next fiscal year, FY18. So essentially we've approached that as a matter of shared sacrifice, both shared responsibility and shared sacrifice. Having a viable and robust health care plan, one that takes care of our employees, not just maintains our obligation to our existing employee base, but again on that recruitment retention side, it helps both retain the employees we have and continue to attract new employees to the district. So it's fundamentally critical that we have a solvent healthcare plan, and the healthcare plan we have is self-funded. So there's a number of pieces in this essentially rescue package for FY18, and that is as follows. The county government will be contributing $5 million inside of maintenance of effort. I referenced that a little bit earlier. The county government would be contributing the $15 million outside of maintenance of effort that an exclusion was gained for from the state. We, the Board of Education, would be obligated to analyze internally our expenditure patterns and identify funds that we would reallocate from its current purpose and repurpose those dollars into the healthcare fund. And then finally, through ongoing negotiations with our bargaining units, we would look to generate either additional revenue from employees, i.e. higher copays or higher premium splits, and or cost avoidances. And then the final piece of that would be the contract that we renegotiated with Care First that runs through the following 3 years. So those elements taken together essentially are targeted at getting us through FY18 on the health insurance fund. We've said many times before that we didn't get into this issue in 1 year. We didn't get out of it. We're not going to get out of it. So we're making some inroads on it in 17. This plan continues to make substantive and significant inroads into it in FY18, and then we will continue to make further inroads into it as we go into FY19 and FY20. But the goal was essentially to eradicate over the course of years the structural imbalance within the fund, put it on sound and sure footing, so that essentially we can put this looming healthcare crisis behind us and then refocus in other areas. So that sort of takes block one, or thematic block one, off the table. The second one is the compensation element. The recommendation or the request of the board was to provide a step increase for all of those eligible, to provide a 1% COLA to those represented individuals that would not otherwise be eligible for a step increase. In addition to that, there was an amendment that the board put forward that would provide a supplemental step increase, a retroactive step increase to employees that were enrolled here, employees of ours back in the 08-09 calendar year, and still remained in that role within that bargaining unit at a minimum in the year ahead. The county executive's proposal does fully align with the recommendation that was put forward by Dr. Arlotto at his December budget time, so it would fully fund a mathematical equivalent of a step for all eligible employees, the 1% for those employees who are represented but would not essentially be eligible, i.e. those that are topped out. So there is sufficient funding to do that. Obviously, it's all subject to negotiations, and those negotiations are ongoing with all of the represented groups as we speak. What was not funded, however, was the amendment that was put forward by the board. So for that supplemental element that would have been the legislative intent of this body was to target that to those individuals that were with us in that 08-09 year. So that has not been addressed through the county executive's recommendation. The third one, obviously, is the Monarch School, as well as supplemental funding to the remaining charter and contract schools. So the two different pieces of that is, as I said, we're going to be opening up a new Monarch contract school in Annapolis. They believe that their enrollment is going to be in the area of 580-ish students. Are actively working on that as we speak. We do not see any impediments from them being able to enroll as many students as their contract allows, and we have sufficient funding in order to be able to handle the per pupil allocations for those students. And then for our remaining schools, it's essentially a tide rising, all boats at the same level. So when our budget goes up, the budgets of the Chesapeake Science Point School, the school out in the Monarch School in Laurel, the Monarch School in Glen Burnie, their budgets proportionally rise as well. So there is sufficient funding to handle all that. The final element, though, is that programmatic issue, and we have to be, cognizant of the fact that we do live in an area of constrained resources. We do live in an era in a fiscally conservative county, but most importantly, we live in a county that requires all units of government, all component units, all departments of the county government to work together and collaboratively to best ensure that this county continues to advance, continues to support its citizenry and provide them the services that they need. So in addition to Board of Education, we obviously have the college and library system, our sister component agencies, and then the myriad of departments within the county government. The county executive, as you know, in formulating his budget, has to take all of those in concert and make the best decisions, the best recommendations, given the fiscal constraints of the county, their ability to yield property taxes, for example, in our revenue cap environment, and then put forward a plan that he feels best positions the county to success and proper. But I'll go back to what I started out with. There are limits on that, and within those limits, given that the focus and priorities on resolving the healthcare crisis that we are in, and I'm using the word crisis deliberately, being able to provide a compensation package for the employees, being able to successfully open up our Monarch Contract School. Well, there's only so much, juice in the orange, and some things are going to have to be sacrificed. We all have to make hard choices. Certainly this board does, certainly the county executive did, and certainly the county council soon will have to do that. And so the bulk of the differential between what was funded and what is recommended by the county executive falls into those two areas: the amendment that is previously referenced, the ones applicable to the 2008 employees, and then to the programmatic enhancements. And quite honestly, the focus is on shoring up the footing that we're currently on before we, look to continue to expand into new programmatic areas, et cetera. So as a result of that, we had asked for 120.3 positions across a myriad of categories, a myriad of programmatic areas. 4.5 of those positions are recommended for funding. Those are essentially positions that are being transferred or reallocated in terms of its cost structure. They are not new FTEs. Those positions exist today. They're simply going to be paid for in a different manner. So we have the recognition and the authority to move and treat the funding source for those 4.5 positions differently. But the remaining approximately 116 positions were not funded within this budget. Again, sort of capstone. This is one of the, in terms of dollar amounts, this is one of the largest year-over-year increases that we've received. Clearly, $19.8 million over maintenance of effort is a significant improvement over what we have experienced in recent times. And then on top of that $26 million in total that's inside of MOE is the fact that the county is putting forward a $22.5 million of effort outside of maintenance of effort via the non-recurring cost waiver that was received from MSDE. With that, I believe we'll cede the floor temporarily and address any questions or concerns the board might have.
On behalf of the board, I'd just like to thank you, Alex, and your team. I know it takes a village to create a budget, and your work also with County Executive Shu and his budget officer, our education liaison, and this board and the county council is what brought us here today. I think it's a generous budget in light of the resources that we have available. It's not perfect, it never is, and neither are our personal budgets. So I think we're very happy with what we're seeing on the paper today.
Thank you, ma'am.
I don't have any board questions. Is there any public comment? All right, we'll move on to capital.
So in the transitioning now to the capital budget, the Board of Education in its approved FY18 recommended budget, we were asking for $240.6 million in aggregate. Again, that's from all sources. the county executive's recommendation for FY 2018 is $195.3 million. So $195.3 million from all sources versus the $240.6 million request. But I need to put that into context. I think some folks may go and take a look at last year's budget where we asked for $243.6 million that was approved and say, well, $240.6 million seems a lot higher than $195.3 million, which is in fact the recommendation this year. But there's a very important nuance. Last year's budget was very atypical because we asked for appropriation authority for $94.1 million via a federal grant that was in support of a grant proposal that we still have not officially heard back about for Meade High School. So to be fair, year and year, to put this in context at a high level, you essentially have to back out that federal grant. Backing out that federal grant last year then, so you can compare apples to apples, the approved budget, CIP budget from last year was $149.5 million. The recommended budget this year is $195.3 million. So it is in fact, again, correcting for the federal grant anomaly, it is in fact a market improvement year over year from the budget that we currently have in place in FY17. We have a couple, one other issue that the board needs to be aware of is that we are not, as of yet, we've not yet been provided, nor have the other 23 LEAs, with the final determination as to the state budget. And the board remembers that here in the state of Maryland, we are fortunate in that both the state of Maryland and the local county governments contribute a portion towards the public school construction program efforts. The state has not yet finalized their numbers. They've not yet been transmitted to the counties. They could have as late as June the 1st to finalize that. So we're awaiting that. Once we're made aware of that, we certainly will transmit that information expeditiously both to the board and the council. With that as a caveat, we'll go back to an overview of the budget. So we have always called the capital budget, this one-page summary, the red, white, and blue sheet. And the items banded in a white bar essentially is an exact mathematical match. So we asked for $A and we got $A. Items that there was a disconnect, so we asked for one number, but the recommendation is for a different value. Sometimes the value's less, sometimes the value could be more. We've historically banded in a blue colored font. And then finally, those items that we requested on behalf of the board that were simply not funded at all, were funded as a zero value, have been banded in red. Well, you'll notice in the exhibit that was provided to the board members, there is no red font in the FY18. So let's begin there. There are no items that are not funded at all. You'll see that a tremendous amount of the projects banded in the white font are fully funded. So that leaves then those that are in blue where there is a differential to some extent from the request and the actual value. Staff and the superintendent proffered the following. This budget does in fact support our capital program. It supports it very well. There are not projects that are going to be delayed. There's not going to be school openings that are in any way going to be deterred or have to be altered as a result of the funding schema that is put here. We just heard, for example, the presentation on the 3 elementary schools, the Edgewater, the Richard Henry Lee, the Tyler Heights. So the trajectory of those projects, the long-term trajectory of those projects is not fundamentally altered by that, as are the fully funded projects, the projects like Manorview, High Point, Cromwell, Jessup, Arnold, and Crofton, the marquee 6 that are going forward at this time. Again, they are all fully funded. We are not altering the schedule on those. So as in capstone, I think it is an extremely generous budget. I will say some of that is by great fortune attributable to the legislation that the county executive put forward and the county council ultimately agreed to extend the maturity of the bonds applicable to schools, because we're really building 40, 45, 50-year assets. And so by expanding the bond duration, it created bond capacity, additional bonding capacity for schools. So the increased level of effort is directly correlated to that initiative that the county government put forward. We are now seeing the fruits, and we're going to continue to see the general obligation bond fruits of that initiative that the county government put forward in the years ahead. With that, I believe that concludes our presentation, and we'll entertain any questions.
Mrs. Birch.
I may be mistaken, but I think this is the first year that the playground equipment has been fully funded in the county executive's budget. Is that correct?
To the best of my recollection, that is absolutely correct.
And I just want to say thank you, because that's something that, you know, we as a school board have always felt is our obligation, that it shouldn't be up to PTAs to be funding these projects, that it's a school obligation and responsibility to do this. And I'm very grateful that the county executive has realized that it is our public duty to provide those facilities for all of our students, not just the ones whose parents can have the fundraisers. The council has helped us out in previous years, but now we don't have to go through that. So I'm very grateful for that. It may only be $300,000 in this huge budget, but it's a really important $300,000.
Mr. Grannon.
Hi, Alex, thank you very much for that presentation. I just want to understand something. For the 3 schools that we heard the presentations on today, if I'm reading this correctly, it looks like the deltas between the budget amount requested and the budget amount proposed range between $11 and $13 million for each school. So how is it possible that those projects can proceed as planned?
So to date, we've been funded for both the feasibility study and essentially schematic design, which you just heard a presentation here. This funding is sufficient for us to continue and complete the rest of the design, which will take the bulk of the year ahead. So we'll have sufficient funding to complete the designs through the design development and construction document phase. We'll be able to create the bid packages. We'll be able to get the permits. We'll be able to, in fact, bid the projects. We'll be able to do the site analysis, the soil borings, the traffic studies, everything that it's going to take to queue up the projects. Then, should we have the good graces, in the next capital budget, the FY19 budget, we would receive the construction dollars to break ground. So we will continue with our design, permitting, bidding, and engineering activities in the current year to get everything lined up that come July 1 of next fiscal year, if we receive the appropriation authority and approvals from the state and the county, we'll break ground at that time. Should we be able to break ground at that time, that does not jeopardize the opening of the school. The end date, our target opening date of the school, will remain as we have intended it to be.
Okay. Did the initial request that was approved by a majority of the board basically entail something going beyond schematic design and beyond groundbreaking, but actually a portion of the construction budget? I'm just wondering why there's such a big difference.
Sure. The gap essentially is, if, say, for example, we were in a position to be able to bid the projects in May, which means we could bring contract awards in my hypothetical construct. We could bid the project in May, bring the contract awards to you in June. We would have the appropriation authority to then execute those contracts in the month of June for a July start. Without that appropriation authority, we would bring the contracts to you in the first meeting of July instead of the last meeting in June in FY19. So, you know, there is a very small gap potential there, but over the course of a 3-year project, you know, you can very easily make up make up 2 weeks. So we don't feel that this jeopardizes, that the funding gap in the FY18 jeopardizes the published and scheduled opening date of those 3 schools. That would materially change should the funding not come to fruition in FY19, but that's still a year away from today.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Mrs. Summer?
I'm very pleased with both of these budgets. I think they reflect the best way for the different county entities, including ourselves, of working together. I think we all understand that our first priority is to the children, and that the school system drives so many things in the county, whether jobs and housing prices and all that, so it behooves us all to work together. And again, I want to commend you and your staff and Dr. Arlotto and County Executive Shue and John Hammond and the council, who all worked together to draft this first one, because I think it really reflects the priorities of what we need, and again exemplifies how we all work together, because we're all in for the same goals. So thank you.
Mrs. Nally?
I just want to echo those comments and say I've been on the board a long time. Looks like it's going to be a lot longer, but than planned. I can't get rid of me. But in my history, experience, I believe this is the most collaborative. I want to thank Aimee Brandenburg. I want to thank County Executive Shue. I want to thank our superintendent, our board members. This has been collaborative. I certainly want to thank Alex and his team. It's been a collaborative effort. As Stacy said, not even our own budgets are perfect. I look down and I go, wait a minute, I want Triple E expanded. And I've been yelling about that for a while. Or wait a minute, I want this moved faster. But I understand within the constraints and what's happening. I really think this is both of these budgets are good budgets. I think they're collaborative, and I think it's been a result of a lot of hard work and effort on everyone's part. And I want to thank the collaborative efforts too of our teachers unions and our Mr. Benfer. Thank you. You've been very collaborative, and it's all good. Thank you.
Are there any public comments on the capital budget?
Madam President, could I make one concluding comment?
Mm-hmm.
I just want to articulate upon the remaining path going forward.
Mm-hmm.
So we will be making a presentation before the county council, because remember, this is the recommendation of the county executive, and essentially after May 1, the responsibility for the approval of the budget shifts to the county council. So we'll be making a presentation before the county council this upcoming Monday morning. The county council will hold 2 public budget hearings Monday night at 7 o'clock at North County High School, and Thursday evening in the week ahead at Maryland Hall, also at 7 o'clock. Their sign-ups are at 6 o'clock. It's a wonderful opportunity for the citizenry to come out and be able to learn more about the budget and advocate for those things that they care deeply about, be it the school district or any other concern or priority they have. The County Council is on a track, has a published calendar that has them adopting the budget on the 14th of June, which is one day ahead of their mandated June 15th completion date. We will then bring the results of that, the final budget that will be adopted by ordinance, essentially becomes the law of the county, effective July 1. We'll bring that back to this board at their second meeting of June so that the board can undertake those actions required to reconcile the differentials, the final differentials between the adopted appropriation authority budget and the request that the board had remitted back in February.
I want to echo that and just encourage our citizens to make an effort to go to the public hearing Monday night at North County High or Thursday at Maryland Hall. The county council can rubber stamp this budget. They can edit it, which could mean adding money to it, adding money to some items on our budget or taking things away. So if there's something that the public loves that's in this budget, they should go and tell the county council that. If there's something that they are concerned that's not being funded, they should say that and share that as well. This is the time to do it, is next week. All right. Thank you, guys.
Yes, ma'am.
The last item on our agenda is 6.02, the award of contracts, and this is a review item. Mrs. Summer?
Yes, one of the items, and I just wanted a little more information about what this program is, the Critical Friends Group coaches.
Yes, ma'am. So I am quite fortunate to have backup on this one. I'm going to ask Mr. Alston to come up and provide those details to you.
And now the backup singer comes. Here we go.
Oh, no. The lead
Song and
singer.
dance. There we go.
Good afternoon. For the record, I'm Anthony Alston, Executive Director of Equity and Accelerated Student Achievement. So the Critical Friends is through the National School Reform faculty. So through the contract, we were able to provide 30 staff members within our system training to be trainers of trainers. And so as we looked at that 30, we looked at individuals from across the system. So individuals from Office of School Performance, Office from Curriculum and Instruction, Advanced Studies and Programming, so Student Support Services, Human Resources. The training is designed to teach us protocols to have the conversations regarding equity, race, and diversity. And so oftentimes we try to have those conversations. We don't always have the structures to do so. And so the protocols enable us to learn the structures to facilitate those conversations within our schools and within central office.
So these coaches will be trained by the national organization, and then they will be able to go out and train others within the schools?
That is correct. So it's the 5-day training, and once we've completed and have certification, we then are trainers of trainers. And so then we are able to train other individuals within our system at no additional cost.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Mrs. Birch?
Is baseball diamond mix dirt?
Yes, ma'am, but it's a very special kind of dirt. So it is dirt that's engineered appropriately for the infield and the base paths.
And to make it really hard to get out of white pants?
That is a byproduct of that engineering effort.
All right. Thanks. Just seemed very odd. Thank you.
Is there any public comment on this item? All right, that concludes the public portion of our meeting. I just have a couple of announcements. The next Board Budget Committee meeting is Wednesday, May 17th at 4:30 p.m. The next Board of Education meeting is an evening meeting, Wednesday, May 17th at 7 p.m. And then the next Board Policy Committee is Wednesday, May 31st at 1 p.m. Mrs. Hummer.
Yes, I move that we go into closed session to consult with counsel to obtain legal advice on a legal matter and to conduct collective bargaining negotiations or consider matters that relate to the negotiations.
All those in favor? All right, we're now in closed session. Thank you.